So Phil, there's one very awkward question for you before we start. This has come from a junior member of the supporters. Steels or Peppers?
Steels any day.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to basically start with some stadium questions, I think. I'm going to try and I'm trying to choose them as I go along, but let's just... this is one that first came up. There are some others, but this is quite important, I think. Is the proposed site in Freeman Street big enough, and has the club any insurances in relation to the land?
Yes, the site's big enough. In fact, one of the last things John did, I think only yesterday, was measured it all out again, and yeah, it's big enough for the stadium, there's no doubt about that. Have we any insurance with regard to the land? At the present time, no. The land is owned by Links Housing Partnership, the former Shoreline, and so there will be discussions with LHP with regard to the future of the land. We did have a meeting with them last year about this, an initial meeting, and obviously we've got to line up further meetings with them to see what their proposals are with regard to the land being transferred to the football club.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to do all three. I'm going to try and mix and match a bit really, so it doesn't get too dry. I also am going to relate to people that have put the questions in if I can, so they know that their question's been asked. I have 10 or 11 lines here, but basically it's been conglomerated into a quote. Most supporters are excited by the prospect of a new stadium in Freeman Street, but are wary of it being another false dawn. Can you give some detailed and verifiable information that it's a feasible project? Tell us, if you can, where the money is coming from. I'll let you do that bit before I go on to the other two lines.
Is it feasible? That's the first one. Yes, it is feasible. When I say it's feasible, as you know, the club, we would have preferred Peaks Parkway. We felt that was the best site in the area. Having said that, the support from the council was not there eventually for that site. The council expressed their desire for us to look at Freeman Street, and we agreed to do that. And you will have seen in the press at the start of this year, the leader of the council, Councillor Jackson, went public and said that one of his main priorities this year was the regeneration of Freeman Street, and that the relocation of the football club was absolutely critical to that relocation. So I think probably we're having the most positive vibes from the council that the club has ever had with regard to relocation. So yes, I'm sure that is a viable proposition. Where is the money coming from? Well, anybody got £25 million funding, please? I'm not trying to be evasive on this.
I understand.
But there are commercial sensitivities about it, and really it is too early to go into detail on that. But what we will need is 20 to 25 million pounds. We're investigating at the present time the question of some grants. So that's a possibility towards it, football stadium improvement, and obviously we will then have to investigate with the council whether any public funding is available. We've had no promise whatsoever from the council that any public funding is available, but if it's part of their relocation, then that may be the case, although again I'd say it's far too early to say exactly where we are with that.
Okay, thanks Phil. If I move on to the next three lines, which I'm going to ask, would you also agree that if we have not got everything in place by the end of 2020, the current board should abandon any thoughts of relocation and leave it to future generations?
No way. The reason for that is that, as has been expressed in the past, if we want to move forward as a football club, we have got to have a stadium that is capable of generating income for more than 23 occasions in a year. it's got to be a 7-day operation. There's also a very important point, and I think John was talking about unsung heroes earlier. It will be a community stadium, and one of my unsung heroes at Blundell Park is Graham Rogers' Education Trust, Sports Education Trust. Last year they were involved in over 200,000 contact hours in the community. 200,000 hours of working in the community on health and education. And I think very few people actually know how much Graham's group do in the community. They are very hampered for space here, and again, a community stadium would be great for them.
Absolutely. Okay. Just to go on the back of that, Phil, in relation to a couple of questions that I've been asked. Car parking. Is there any sort of bolt in the whole procedure for car parking? And because me and Terry are old, is there any prospect of ever, do you think, of the BTP allowing, for example, Grimsby Dock Station to reopen, which would assist the movement of supporters in and out of the town?
There will be, obviously we haven't done detailed plans yet, but there is sufficient space for some car parking, not sufficient car parking for example, the 2,000 car parking spaces we aim to have at Peaks Parkway, nowhere near that. There are public car parks in the vicinity, and there's potential for off-street parking as well. So there'll be more parking than there is at Blundell Park, which isn't difficult, and there will be, as I say, public car parks. So far as the station, well, if you can persuade Network Rail to reopen the station, it would be delightful. And perhaps we need to get Martin Vickers MP on it, because he seems to be doing well with Suggett's Lane and Boris Johnson. Perhaps we could have a campaign to reopen Dock Station for Grimsby Town Football Club.
One last question in relation to where you look at Freeman Street, and obviously there's been a lot of talk about it and where the flats were, but just for a lot of people's knowledge that don't go down Freeman Street regularly, where is the actual site hoping to be?
It's to the rear of the market. At the moment, there's an area from the market up to Ryby Square, where frontage, I think it was called the Agra site, owned by the Freeman. That's been demolished. So it's not that site, it's behind that to the rear. Although there are plans again for the Freeman, who own that land, to redevelop. There's going to be a new YMCA building on Freeman Street, but there will then be a gap between the new YMCA building and the market, and the Freeman have got plans for that, although not definite plans at this stage. So it may be, and again we've had an initial meeting with the Freeman, it may be that part of that may be incorporated. That's very much up in the air at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to drift away from the stadium slightly, because one of the main other talking points which I've got some questions for is in relation to ticketing systems at the football club. But before we go into that, I know things have got to change maybe, and there is some work going on, I understand, which Dave might help us with. I'm not saying it because she's here, but one of the most important things about this football club is the community you get in the ticket office. When you can walk in, speak to Lisa, speak to Fran, speak to any of the girls, and they'll get what you want. They'll look after you, they'll do 100%, they get the job right every day. It's extremely hard. So I'm going to ask these questions, but I just wanted to mention that because I think it's really important that the community generation there is in that ticket office, when you can go in, get your ticket, have a bit of banter, and you're always looked after. So whatever the future is, for me and for a lot of other people, it's really important that we still keep that personal touch, because it's so important. And there's so many clubs where you get a ticket and you don't even see anybody, you don't even speak to anyone. Maybe it's a good idea, I don't know, maybe we can be in the middle. Anyway, Dave, there's one coming your way.
I was going to hand over to Dave anyways.
Thank you. So this is from Liam Moore, Dave. Can't be here tonight because he's on nights. Our ticketing system is ancient and not user-friendly in the slightest in my opinion. We are one of the only league clubs who can not select specific seats online and have them either sent to phones or print at home. I very rarely get the seat I request online or when I order over the phone. I know we are looking to move to a new stadium, but is there any prospect of handheld scanners or readers that are transferable between stadiums and seating plans that can be updated? It would open up countless opportunities for email marketing too, something which the club, in my opinion, doesn't fulfil itself completely. There are so many companies out there who have this facility, and if some of the clubs that can facilitate this, can we do it? It surely can't cost that much. Well, I don't know about that. Surely the pros outweigh the cons. Many thanks, Liam.
Okay.
Sorry to be so long-winded. You got the gist.
Right. So yes, the current system is very old. I don't know how old are you?
In the 90s it was developed.
In the 90s.
Yeah.
So yes, it's very old. And there's pros and cons with that because it was developed for the club. It's completely standalone, therefore it doesn't cost anything. Basically, it's very, very economical to run. And therefore we're starting from a base that anything we do from that is going to cost money, and it's all about can we justify the payback. But there are flaws with the current system, as Liam in his question identified. You can't book a seat online. There's all sorts of opportunities with the current systems to upward sell and to market to people. So you get to know who's coming in your ground, and probably more importantly, who's not coming in your ground. So things like tracking people who came 10 games ago who haven't been since. You can communicate directly with them and automatically with them and things like that. So there's lots of pluses with the new system, but it does cost. Myself and Sam's at the back there, we've done a lot of work on this. We've looked at a lot of different suppliers. We've actually got a meeting tomorrow with the guys here and with Rob. Did I see Rob in the room as well? From eTech. To really start to get to the precise cost of what it would cost. The one particular company we're looking at, the actual running costs aren't as high as they were, say 4 years ago when the club last looked at it. The costs then were very high. The systems have come a long way since then, and they are much more economical in terms of the day-to-day running. But there will be some hardware costs which could be quite significant. So I'm a big fan of this, and I'm in favour of it. And the club do want to move on, but like everything, it comes down to money, and we're going to have to justify a payback on it, which will be some cost savings. There will be some cost savings from it. So things like you'll get a card instead of a season ticket book, and those books all cost 70p each or something like that. The card costs 5p. So there are some obvious savings, but the other part of it is the benefits. So trying to evaluate those benefits and convincing the board, because it'll come down to a board decision that those benefits are real and tangible. Then hopefully we can make progress. The good news is that they're fairly quick to implement as well, these, because they're proven. There's lots of other clubs, as Liam said, doing it. So if we made a positive decision, you can actually implement pretty quickly within a couple of months or so.
And can you unplug it and take it with you? Do you know?
Yes, you can. Yeah, yes, you can. So it's work in progress. Hopefully we'll get some news, but there's an appetite for it, but it comes down to money and.
Following the demise of Bury and with other clubs such as Macclesfield and Oldham in financial trouble, the EFL said they were going to review the financial rules and sanctions for Leagues 1 and 2. Is there any update on this, and are there any implications for the club?
The discussions at the present time are ongoing with the EFL. So there's been certain meetings that have taken place. A number of proposals have been put forward for clubs to consider, which will be further discussed at a league meeting tomorrow. to be voted on at the AGM in June. Have you got any update on that, Phil?
Yeah. This goes back really to the salary cap management plan, which the EFL operate in League 1 and League 2. In League 2, you can spend 50% of your income on player wages. Income is obviously your gate receipts, what you get from the EFL. It also includes any increase in the equity, in other words, sale of shares. So if there are a lot of shares sold in a football club, 100% of that income can be used towards your salary. Likewise, 100% of any transfer fees you receive go towards that salary cap. The problem that arose at Bury, and I can't go into great detail because I have in fact received today a report that the AFL have had into Bury, but basically was that they had a rich owner for many years, and when he decided he'd had enough, the club was left with a salary level that they could just not manage. A several £1 million salary bill which they could just not manage. Consequently, we were at a meeting of the football leagues 1 and 2 3 weeks ago, and the vast majority of clubs at that meeting, including Grimsby Town, were of the view that something had to change. Basically, players' salaries are going through the roof, and it is getting more and more difficult. So the view of the clubs was that there should be a salary cap in Leagues 1 and 2. Now, this can't be an individual player's salary, you can't do that, but you could have a salary cap in the sense that each club can spend a certain amount on players' salaries as a total each year. So, for example, one of the proposals was that League 2 should have a £2 million salary cap. There should also be a cap on the size of squads which you could have in Leagues 1 and League 2 to reduce the size of squads, because some clubs have 35, even 40 players in League 2 in their squads. That clubs should be financially sustainable. There's no requirement at the moment for clubs to be financially sustainable, and that there should be more penalties open to the EFL. Again, in the Bury case, as you know, they weren't paying players. The only penalty open to the EFL was to put a transfer embargo on them under the regulations. Well, what is the point of a transfer embargo in February when there isn't an open transfer window? So proposal was that there should be a points deduction, an automatic points deduction for clubs that did not pay their wages. And this took the vast majority of the clubs at that meeting were in
We still seem
favour.
to have this situation at large away followings which is very good, excellent, Bradford and what have you. But we've got another big game coming up in a week or so, and we still don't be able to shake off the problem with pyros, flares, or whatever you like to call them. Most people are concerned about whether it would have an impact financially on the football club, because we've seen this situation before. Nobody wants it who's a genuine fan. Can we put a message out there? Because if it does have an impact on the football club, we don't really want to see any of this type of behaviour. It's not called Glanford Park anymore, is it? It's something else, but a week on Saturday. So I don't know if you can answer the question, but I think it's a very important one if the club are at risk again.
You want to answer that, Dave?
Yeah,
I just quickly answer Dave. I think it is the sort of behaviour we don't want from our fans. It happened at Bradford, and it shouldn't happen. It's not just the fact throwing it onto the pitch, it's the potential danger to your fellow spectators. It's just such irresponsible behaviour, and we don't want it.
yeah. I mean, you mentioned putting messages out. We have actually done that in the past. We've done it to Trust. I know the club have done it. We should just continue to bang that drum, indeed the FSA, who we're part of, the Football Supporters Association, is a place on their website which basically lays out all the rules about pyros and the fact that they're illegal and you can't. And I think in our programme notes, a few we actually took a copy of that and made it clear. So we keep putting the message out there. It's at the end of the day, it's I don't know who's doing it, but it's presumably young, enthusiastic supporters who like that sort of excitement. But as Philip just said, there's people with asthma and breathing difficulties amongst the crowd. It's just not right. So if you want to support the club, then just do it loud and proud, but please leave the pyros out.
Right, I'm going to nip back to the stadium, Phil. Regarding the new stadium, many fans feel helpless and would like to do more to help the process. Is there anything at all the fans can do at this stage apart from wearing a placard saying "Keep the people"?
I think it's early days for the fans to be involved at this stage, other than to continue supporting the club, keep coming to Blundell Park. Let's have the attendances up to show that we've got a viable football club and more people want to attend. That would be great help. But as and when we get further along the road, then I'm sure there'll be lots that we want to involve the fans with.
Thank you.
It's their stadium.
It is, yeah, and I know that when we get to that opportunity, I'm sure you will. So moving swiftly on to the next contentious discussion base. What is the situation with season tickets for next season, i.e. when will they go on sale, Lisa, and when we will know what we're paying?
Dave, to do it? Yep.
Right, okay, so this has been discussed and we're well down the track of getting to a decision on this. I think it's worth pointing out that as a club, we don't actually need to put season tickets on sale early. When we see other clubs doing it and we get feedback from fans saying, well, Lincoln are doing it, so why aren't we? It's because they need the money. Their cash flow relies on getting that money in early. The way we plan our cash flow is that it's planned for June, and that's certainly the case for this season. We don't actually need to do it, but for this season we do see the benefit of going early and then going on the back of all the enthusiasm that we've got at the moment. So we're in the process of setting the prices. An early indication would be there will be a small increase for some. But not all. There'll be some rebalancing within that. So, kids, for example, we've looked at that. I think when we compared our prices last year, we were a bit more expensive on kids than some of the other clubs. So, we're going to rectify that. We're going to tidy up a couple of other things, like we've got a 15 to 18-year-old category, which we think is unfair. So we're going to change that as well. So there'll be some rebalancing. A very small increase, but we'll get to a final decision probably next week and be on sale the week after, is the plan.
Do we know any details of pre-season matches or a tour, and when does the season start?
The AFL season starts on the 1st of August, which is incredibly early.
Very early.
Ollie is going to take the players away on a pre-season training abroad, but he doesn't want to play any matches, so it's really going to be a hard-working boot camp for the players for a week. He wants them together to build up the squad togetherness, and he's going to make them run and run and run, he said. So it's a fitness programme rather than anything else.
This is something that's come up 2 or 3 times, Phil, going back to the stadium, bearing in mind the sort of, we've already discussed the people, which you've said that we can placard and you won't. It's quite a tight area, isn't there? Would there be any compulsory purchase of anything if you had to, if there was a delay to the development or for the footprint the ground requires? Would you have to spend extra money, do you think? I know it's early days. Would you have to buy the market?
From our investigations to date, there is sufficient with the area from which the flats have been demolished to build a stadium and car parking. If we wanted to do more than that, then there may have to be some compulsory purchase of some housing, but that would certainly wouldn't be initially be part of our plans. And instead of the pontoon end, the P-bung end.
Loving it. There's somebody written me this, and I might not be able to write it very well, but just correct, whoever's written it, correct me if I'm wrong. Can ambient disabled match day tickets be extended to the pontoon? Is that right? Whoever wrote it?
It's in every stand, ambulance tickets.
Oh right, okay. It's in every stand. Does anyone who wrote who wrote it? Do we know?
I did, because we got told that we could only go in the main stand.
Okay.
So
In what capacity? Just tell me.
ambulance and carer.
Okay.
Can your carer come in with you with the same in the pontoon as well as the fenders and the main stand?
From this season, everything changed.
I didn't know,
That was
Lisa.
last season.
I didn't know,
From
you
this
see, so...
season, it's in every stand.
Oh, brilliant. I didn't know, you see. That.
All age categories.
Yeah.
So if you're a senior, you'll get a free carer. So it's all age categories in every stand. But
Brilliant.
only the wheelchairs still have to go in the main stand because that's where.
See, I didn't know, because like, I've been told before that you could only go in the main stand.
No, we changed it this year to come in.
It would appear the Freemans of Grimsby have a vision, and it might have been seen by people, a vision of what they think the stadium and the surrounding area will look like and will be. Is that independently, or is that in conjunction with the people that are doing that work from your side?
This went into the Grimsby Telegraph, I think, last year, this artist impression of the stadium. The first thing that we knew about the artist impression was when we opened the paper. We knew nothing about it whatsoever. And in fact, John actually went to one of the Freemen and said, "Do you want the keys of Blundell Park now? You can take over." They weren't that interested. So no, it wasn't as we saw it. We have had designs in the past which are very different to that was seen. Having said that, the idea of opening up Freeman Street, an entrance into the stadium from Freeman Street, a walkway, the idea of a walkway from Grimsby Dock Station down to the stadium, good ideas. One of the points I made to the council when I met them was, yeah, we're happy to go along with the council's regeneration plans, but it's not just putting a stadium there. There's got to be a lot of money spent on improving Freeman Street from the market to Ryby Square, because at the moment, sadly, it's in a very dilapidated state. Many of the shops are closed. It's not a good approach, because the community stadium is the community stadium, will be used by a lot of people. Also, we hope to have conference facilities in it, and if you're attracting people to there's nowhere to hold a conference in Grimsby. It's crazy, isn't it? The nearest place is Forest Pines. If you're holding a conference, you're inviting business people to conferences in the town, the approach wants to be right as well. So there's a lot that needs doing in the Freeman Street area, as well as the building of a stadium.
Okay, thank you. Dave, this might be a question for you, but you might need to just wing it to Christine, really, because a couple of people mentioned this. I know you're not sat on the top table, Christine, and I don't know what you can say, but we'd certainly like to discuss information sharing of the football club and safety officers and things like that from the point of view of... I know of some complaints when people went to Bradford, particularly about people standing on seats, standing in the vomitory areas, people couldn't see, and there didn't seem to be a lot done about it. I know some incidents that happened because me and Christine discussed it, and it's probably stuff that if it's ongoing we can't, but is there anything fed back that you know or Christine knows in relation to... There's a few people that were in the Malmere stand that probably slightly aggrieved, got the ticket, paid the £20, was shoved in the corner, everyone stood up around them. No, sadly on this particular occasion, the steward, supervisor or response people, whatever they call them, police officers took a back seat. and people just felt a little bit aggrieved, I think, in some areas of that stand, which was really busy. Does anything get sent back? Does Nick share anything? Can anyone enlighten us? Because we don't seem to know what happens. We all mumble and chant about it and we go home, and it just sometimes get lost unless we've discussed with Kristin it's a specific offence. Long questions.
Thanks for that one. I've had no specific feedback on that, but I was in that stand, so I know exactly what the issue was. And persistent standing through a game is a problem, particularly for those who need to sit, who don't want to stand. And it brings into the whole debate about having some sort of safe standing area, if that's the right description, which is a hot topic, and it's starting to gain momentum around the country, really. Trying to police it is in its current all-seater is really difficult, because there's something I've spoken to Nick about, and when away fans, for example, I think we had some problems with Bradford when they came here. Some people stood up, and there were some complaints from fellow Bradford supporters. Trying to do anything about it during the game, you know better than me, that can cause more problems than
It's a risk.
than enough. So for me, the answer is to have proper dedicated areas for standing, and then really you do enforce sitting down then in the remaining areas. You know, I witnessed 3 or 4 people, particularly when we scored, who just fell over the seats, and it was nasty. And to be fair, they probably had too much to drink, but they were nasty falls, and stood up and celebrating in seated areas is not ideal at all when it's as packed as that. So let's hope there is progress with standing. It's getting back to the stadium. As things stand, we've got the ridiculous situation, because this ground has a licence for all-seater, which goes back to our championship days. When we move grounds, that licence goes with us, and we can't put standing in the new ground, despite the fact we're playing teams every week who have got standing. It's a crazy situation, but it is changing. So we'll see where we get to in the next year or so with government legislation and things like that, because it does need legislation to change.
Thank you, Dave.
Surely
Can I just say, sorry.
So I was just going to say, surely that certification thing would be the same with Manchester United, would it not, at Old Trafford? And they're proposing putting safe standards. How are they getting around it?
Safe standing in there.
Because
It's not safe standing,
rail seats.
it's rail seats.
Rail seats.
Yeah, and that is a big difference. In fact, we had a safety advisory group meeting this morning, and the representative from the Sports Ground Safety Authority was at that meeting, and that authority, which basically is the policeman to ensure that we all comply with the requirements, their attitude is to continue pressing the government for a change of the law to enable safe standing at football grounds. They're also actually having a campaign to try and stop people standing in all-seater stadiums. I wish them the best of luck, and say when they've managed to do it at the COP, then they can come to Brundle Park and start on us.
Things that I know that are going on, I just thought would be important to bring in. Loved it when I worked abroad, when I bang, but fan zones are marvellous. Love them, Dave. Passionate about it. When's it happening? I'm desperate to get in there.
Okay. Right, fan zone. We know it's been something that the fans have been asking for, and we know that around Blundell Park it's very difficult because we've got no space. But we have found a solution, and the really good news is that we've been working with the Premier League Fans Fund, and we've got a grant from them of nearly £20,000 to put some fan engagement projects together, and the centrepiece of that is a fan zone. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen in this corner here, the constitutional corner, and it's going to be done in such a way that There'll be secure fencing there so that effectively, although it is in the ground technically, you're not actually entering the ground. So you can come along from 12 o'clock onwards on the match day, 5 o'clock on an evening game. And there'll be a big marquee in there. There'll be a kids zone for playing on inflatable, like speak on goal, that sort of thing. There'll be some entertainment. There'll be face painting. There'll be bar, food, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean it's not massive, but big enough, I think, for what we need. So fans have asked for it, and we're going to get it.
Absolutely. If everyone's experienced them, they're a fantastic thing to do. Really good.
And I should just emphasise, it will be for home and away fans.
Yeah.
So again, you know, I go to most away games, and we mix with away fans all the time, and it's a pleasure. It's great. It's
Colchester was really good last year.
Just swapping stories, and that's the way it should be. Obviously, we might need special arrangements for some games. I don't know. Don't know. But even at Lincoln, when Town went to Lincoln, you could go into their fans then, no problem at all. There's no reason why fans can't mix. And it will be a family fan zone, so families will be encouraged, and hopefully it'll be a big success. And that the work will start on that during the close season. It'll be ready for the start of next season.
Thank you. No, the bar doesn't go to the back of your house, Andy.
I was just going to say, can we use mine? Would you have to have a match ticket to come to it, or could,
No.
in theory, anybody could come?
In theory, anybody could come. I'm not too sure why they would, but
Yeah.
but that could happen, yeah, because you're not going in the ground.
Yeah.
So no.
Okay. So, moving on then. I applaud the 33 fans that came from Newport last night. I really do. But next question for, I suppose, Phil or John. When we're top in September and we're encouraging all these people to come in, and we haven't got so many away fans, any prospect of using the Osborne behind the goal or something like that to cram a few more people in?
Yes, in fact, our proposal next season is that for the vast majority of games, the Osborne stand will be available for home supporters, and away supporters like the 33 from Newport, or however many came from Stevenage, although Stevenage won't be coming here next season. They will be in the corner. Will have to be some arrangements about providing food and drink for the people in the corner, but Nick is looking into that. So yeah, the Osmond will be a home stand, other than for the larger games like Bradford, Scunthorpe, Mansfield, when obviously Bolton Wanderers next season.
Is it that right little corner bit then, as far as you can?
Yeah. So yeah,
That's right.
let's pack the park.
At the park. Kev with his new cap. Phil, I'm going to pass this to Derek, because he's going to ask a question for you. Derek's just sat in front of you.
There you go, Derek. You got it, Derek? Yeah. Testing, Derek. You're up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a personal question to you, Philip. I've been a lifelong supporter of this club. That's one of the many reasons I look quite old. I've supported them since my family moved here when I was at junior school. And there was a man called Mr. Shankly was running the job, so you can tell when that was. Now, followed them through thick and thin, then sadly 26 years ago I lost my sight suddenly, and so I'm very dependent now on Radio Humberside. John Tonda does an excellent job, and dependent on them to provide me with the commentary. Now, is John Fenty still in the building?
He is.
Yes, he's behind you, Derek.
Right. Oh, yeah, he is.
Oh, yes, he is.
Before I ask the question, I just wanted to reiterate what Alan said about I never thought I'd live to see the day when somebody of Ollie's statue would come to the club, and I want to congratulate John Fenty and the board for bringing him in. The board and John have taken a lot of flack in the past, and it's been unwarranted, and it's nice to have a compliment going over. Now, coming back to my question, Philip, I'm a people person, know quite a lot about John Fenty's background, and you say, oh no you don't. but I know very little about Philip Day. I wonder if you'd be kind enough to give me some details of when you joined the board, what your background was, and what your interest is, and what you're going to be doing now. John's taken the back seat.
Thank you, Derek.
That's a low baller, Derek.
Yes. Not quite as long a supporter as you. My first season was 1958-59, so this is my 61st season as a supporter of Grimsby Town Football Club. Tom Johnston was the manager when I first started coming. Used to park my bike in Harrington Street and pay the halfpenny that you had to pay to park your bike, and it was always safe in there when you got back. I'm Grimsby born and bred, solicitor by profession. I was for 42 years with Wilkin Chapman, senior partner at that firm, and I was senior partner for 6 years, and saw the growth of the firm to what it is now, the largest legal firm in the region, from between Norwich and Newcastle, now employing 500 people. So I've been involved in the capacity as both a lawyer and running the business. So I think I can bring those skills to running a football club. At Wilkin Chapman we used to budget every year to see what profit we would make. At Blundell Park you budget each year to see how little loss you can make. That's the big difference. But yeah, that's my background. Went to university but always came back to Lincolnshire, and as I say, been a supporter for 61 years now. I've spent time in every stand in this ground, but my favourite was still the old Barrett stand.
Thanks, Phil.
What made you join the board, Philip, please?
A certain Mr. Fenty
I thought you were going to say that.
decided two things. I was actually asked before I retired, but I took the view you can only do, a bit like John now, you can only do one job properly, and being senior partner at Wilkin Chapman would not have given me the time to devote to the board. So I was asked as soon as I retired, will you come onto the board? And I can tell you that in the 7 years I've been on the board, we haven't had a bill for legal services.
Excellent.
Thanks for being squeaky. Nice for joining.
Okay, thanks, Derek.
Thank you very much.
Just to go back to the stadium again, Phil, you've done this slightly, but just to wrap it up, will there be a proper consultation to gauge the views and expectations of supporters, not a box ticking exercise when plans have already been decided?
But there most certainly will be. If you remember when we were looking at Peaks Parkway, we had some open days, we asked supporters to come along, give us their views. Absolutely critical. I said earlier, it's the fans' stadium, and it's got to be right for the fans. The other thing, going back, one of the questions asked earlier about the financing of it, one of the things we will not do as a football club is leave the club with a hefty bill for a stadium. Because, for example, Bradford City's bill is £500,000 a year as rent for their stadium. Now, we will not do that. It's got to be right financially for the football club, and we're not leaving a stone around the neck of future generations. That is certain.
Thanks, Phil. And just going on from that, and I know you said it's early days, but have you got any thoughts about what the style would be? Says John, would it be oval style? Would it be like a Reebok or a York City's the most recent one, I think, or rather like Rotherham's?
I suspect it will be 4 stands with open corners, not as large as open corners. Obviously, if you have an oval stadium with all the corners covered in, the cost of that is far more expensive than one with 4 stands. So it'll depend on cost, but I would anticipate it will be 4 stands.
Has your pen run out yet, John? No. Okay, so I think we can answer this. Sharon, can we have some more beer festivals?
We can definitely answer this.
Got one in June the 6th. Bigger and better. Yeah, more beer, Sharon says. Just deviating slightly, completely from what we've been talking about, really. Couple of questions. Ian, do League 2 footballers have agents, and how much part do they play in contracts for particularly players that have been here that you want to keep?
Yeah, virtually every player at League 2, League 1 have got agents, intermediaries they're called now. And they play a huge part. If you don't talk to the agent, you're not going to sign the player, so you've got to enter into negotiations through the intermediary to get anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my question is that at the moment there's a political will to get this stadium delivered on Freeman Street. As John said, Philip Jackson came out in the new year. There are going to be council re-elections in May and subsequent Mays in which the political makeup of the council could change. Indeed, John could lose his position as deputy leader and portfolio holder for regeneration. If there is a change in the political makeup of the council in May, how will that affect the desire to deliver the stadium on Freeman Street?
Our desire to deliver the stadium will be just the same.
Yeah.
What the politicians' desire will be depends on who the politicians in power are at the time. All I can say is that the previous leader of the council under the Labour administration was a stalwart supporter of a relocation for Grimsby town, and I'm sure that everyone can see the benefits of regeneration of part of the town, and that regeneration will only take place if there's something like a stadium in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Are there any plans in the pipeline for another Operation Promotion?
That's a really a matter for the trust because it was their operation.
No, not as such, but the best way really is buy season tickets and come and support the club, basically, because that's the way to do it. I mean, that was a fantastic campaign, and no getting away from it, and we played our part in getting the club back up, but in all honesty, the work that went behind that, I don't want to do that again, if I'm honest. I'd much rather just spend a lot of time getting this place right and getting people through the turnstiles, because that's where the money's going to come from.
I was waiting for this question and it's arrived. Is there any update on the takeover?
There is no takeover.
Thank you.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Any more questions from anybody?
Just got one thing for you, which is quite interesting.
Right, I've heard from the hospital, and obviously they're very, very busy these days, but ever since Ollie's taken over, there's been a reduction in neck braces, right? Because for the last few years they've had to buy that many neck braces, it's been impossible. But I'd like to thank the club because things are going quite smoothly now, and Saturday nights are quite easier. Thank you.